Hi there, I'm Neil, also known as the Hairy Man, and I'm here to talk to you today about the planning stage and the travel on my recent 50th birthday trip, delayed due to COVID obviously, to Disney and Universal Studios in Florida. But before I get onto that, you might have noticed that I've got an absolutely rocking new theme tune. Now, this was written specially for me by a gentleman called Chris Harrison. He's someone I've known for a good many years now, and used to play guitar for High on Maiden, who are the official Iron Maiden tribute band, and currently playing in a band called The Mighty Handful, and he's an all-round musical genius. He wrote, arranged and performed the majority of the instruments of this track himself, with very little direction from this musical imbecile here. I think literally the only real direction I gave him was make it as 80s metal as humanly possible. So please, if you get a chance, check him out. He is an amazingly talented man, and I can't thank him enough for this. All the links to Chris's socials and other stuff are in the description below the video. So without further ado, let's talk about how I planned, which you will have seen some of the initial planning in my previous videos for the holiday that got cancelled, but this is what I did to get this particular holiday off the ground. And so I began planning in October of last year, so back in 2021, and as soon as the USA opened up travel, for me, I had to make sure that I had a hierarchy of things in place before I could go on to the next step. So first thing for me was getting an ESTA, which is required for a UK citizen to enter the United States. Other countries might need a visa, so depending on where you're watching this or where you reside, you'd have to check with the United States first before making the bookings. So once I'd got that documentation that would actually let me into the country, I think it cost somewhere in the region of £13 or dollars. I can't remember which currency I paid in. And I then was like, okay, I can get in the country now, so let's start looking for some insurance. And for me, it's a very personal thing, and you need to decide how much cover you wanted. But certainly for me, with the way that medicine works in the United States, travel insurance was an absolute must. So I needed to have medical cover at a minimum, and then narrow things down by looking for how much cover I wanted, if it was delayed due to COVID, whether there was another lockdown, or whether I developed COVID in the meantime. So again, that's a personal thing. Shop around and get the best deal for you. So again, I got that part of the hierarchy in place. I decided that rather than doing what I'd done before, which was book directly with Disney and book with Universal and sort of like do it piecemeal myself, I decided, why should I do that as an amateur who doesn't really know what he's doing, when I can get a travel agent to do it all for me and get all of the hard stuff done. And so I wanted to get the best deal I possibly could. So I booked as early as I could, and that meant I was able to splash out for business class seats there and back, because as I think I only managed to get it because, again, they're just opening the travel corridor was up, so everything was really cheap. I will say that business class is an absolute game changer, and if you can afford it, you should do. Even if it's only for your return journey, it's worth its weight in gold for a lie flat bed and little extra baggage space and a slightly easier time at the airport. So I decided on getting park hopper tickets. It's not 100% necessary, and what I mean by park hopper is with the Disney resorts, it means that you can go to one park in the morning, which you have to be pre-booked for, or this is one of those weird things that Disney is doing now. But it means that if there's capacity at another park, you can switch to that park in the afternoon. It's not strictly necessary, and I could have probably done without it, but for me it was a useful thing to have to give me some flexibility. Universal, I would say that having the 2 park tickets for Universal Studios and Universal's Islands of Adventure is a very worthwhile thing to have. Some of the other stuff that I got through booking with a travel agent was a few extra little bits and pieces, some of which I used, some of which I didn't. So in this case, off the top of my head, it got me a ride on the wheel at Icon Park. There was a 7-day ticket to for a shuttle that went up and down International Drive, which is sort of like the tourist trap road in Orlando. Got me tickets to a dinner show, which I didn't make it to. I think a $20 gift voucher at one of the shopping malls, which again I didn't get to, but there's little extras that I got through booking with a travel agent that I wouldn't have got if I was sort of like slogging through doing it all on my own. So for Disney, I decided to stay at what's called a value resort, which is at the lower end of the price point. But it still gets the benefits of what Disney refer to as staying on property. So I chose Pop Century because, like its sister resort, the Art of Animation, it has access to the Skyliner, which is a cable car system for getting you to and from some of the parks, which I think works out as being a little bit faster and more convenient than the traditional bus transportation. And I didn't plan on spending a lot of time at my resort, so really all I needed was somewhere to sort of like come back to, have a shower, or get my head down and have a sleep. So that was ideal. They managed to accommodate my requests, and if, like me, you're not really intending to use too much of the hotel facilities, I asked for a ground floor room in the 1970s section. Now, I deliberately chose that, A, for ease of access, so I'm not having to carry things up and down stairs or use lifts, but mostly because the 1970s section doesn't have a pool, and that means that you're not going to have so much noise because they run the pools quite late into the night and they're playing music by the pools. So if you want a bit of peace and quiet, I would recommend asking to stay in the 70s section. And the area that I got was pretty good because it was a fairly short walk to either get to the buses and about an equidistant walk to get to the Skyliner. So transport wise was good, and it was also pretty close to the main amenities of the dining and shopping. So that worked out very well for me. Now, the bonuses of staying on property, as Disney refer to it, it gives us better access to booking restaurants and experiences. So normally you can only book your table service restaurants or experiences 60 days in advance. By staying on property, you get 60 days, but you also get the length of your stay added onto that. So as soon as I hit 60 days, I could book for the 15 days that I was staying at the resort all at the same time, not having to go back each day and book when I hit a 60-day window. Also gives you things like preferred access to the parks. So you get, with a value resort, you get early access to the park. So I believe that means you can get into the park 30 minutes before guests who aren't staying with Disney get in. So gives you a chance to sort of like jump on the popular rides, right, and get them out of the way before the park begins to fill up too much. Now for Universal, I went for a change of plan. I went for a split stay. So I started off staying at their value resort of Surfside, which is again, they're fairly recently opened, new resort at the budget end of the spectrum. But then about 3 days in, I switched over to one of their deluxe hotels. I went over to the Hard Rock Hotel because obviously I'm a metalhead and it makes sense. Plus, that was only a 5-minute walk from the park, so it was good access and meant you weren't at the whims of the transport. So I did that. Also, staying at a deluxe hotel at Universal, it gives you access to the Universal Express Pass, which is a kind of thing that lets you don't jump the queue in the lines, but you do get access to a queue with a lot less people in it, which is really convenient, and saves you a whole shed load of time. So got all of that in place. So all I had to do now was to get there. So I decided what would work best for me was to book a hotel at Gatwick Airport for the night before, so that I didn't have the worry of having to travel there in the morning. I could just get up, get out of bed, wander over to the terminal, get on the flight, gone. So I booked one of the on-site hotels. I chose Premier Inn because it was the cheapest option, and then I needed to sort out my transport to the actual airport itself, because normally I prefer to say get dropped off or picked up, but in this case it wasn't possible. Also, I looked at all of the options. I looked at travelling down by train. I looked at booking a taxi or an Uber. But what worked out the best and was the most convenient for me was actually valet parking, which I was quite pleasantly surprised. It cost me just over £100 to leave my car there for 3 weeks and just have it there when I got back. So for me, that was a real win. However, before I could even think about leaving the country, I had to jump through a couple of hoops just to get to the United States. Now, the United States wants you to take a COVID test and test negative on the day before you travel. Now, I found things very confusing and with a lot of contradictory evidence, so I'm going to share my experience with you just to try to make things easier for you if you're travelling while this restriction is still in place. It is not 100% clear to the casual observer or the casual Googler of information what exactly is required. So I dug in and I found out that you just need to get a rapid antigen test, or as we in the UK have come to know, it's a lateral flow test. And reading further into it, it's not you can just use a home kit and turn up with your little thing and go, look, here's my negative result. It had to be an observed test by or supervised by a medical professional who would then give you a certificate. British Airways have an app called Verifly, where you put in your details and then you get given a code by your supplier that says I passed my test, and you put that in, and then that flags it up on the app. You show them the app and they go, ah, yes, please go through. So I did a bit of research, and there's a couple of popular options. One of the more popular options is doing a supervised test over a video call. So you book your test, they send you the test through the post, and then at a set time you will get on a Zoom call or something similar with a healthcare professional, and they will watch you stick a swab up your nose and down your throat or whatever you need to do, and they will watch you administer to the test. Then they will, and then 15 minutes later, once the test has come through, you can show them the result on video. They go, okay, yes, that test number matches the test that our system says we've sent you. You're negative. Okay, that's fine. Here's an email of your certificate, and you can use that. Other options are, there are testing centres at some airports and train stations where you can walk in, you can do the swab, wait for the results, and then get that printed out and emailed to you. I did look at that, but eventually I found a testing centre that was close to me. It was actually a pharmacy that did fit to fly tests. It cost me £20, and I figured that this was the most convenient for me, because if I failed the test, it meant I'd just drive home for 10 minutes rather than take it at the airport and then have to drive all the way back from the airport. So that was the one that worked for me. So shop around. You can find lots of good deals, but all you need to get into the United States is a rapid antigen test or a lateral flow test. A lot of places are doing sort of like expedited PCR tests, which are much more expensive, but you don't need that. You only need lateral flow test. So you'll also need to have your NHS COVID pass as proof of vaccination, and that was fairly easy for me. I've got a login for the NHS, and I've got the NHS app on my phone, so I was able to get that. And if I waited for long enough, I could get it so that it covered both ends of my holiday in case I needed to show a COVID pass on the way back. So once I got that done, I put the information into Verifly. They got back to me. They said, "Yep, you're fit to fly." So that was it. I then drove over down to Gatwick, and just followed the signs for valet parking. It was all very easy. The valet parking automatically let me in because they knew what my number plate was going to be. So just before you get into the car parking area, there's sort of like a bunch of cameras that take an all-round photograph of your car, so that they've got a record of what state your car was in when you dropped it off. Barriers go up, drive in, park up, give your keys to the attendant, and that's it. You get given a ticket to reclaim your vehicle, or when you return from holiday. And what they'll do is they'll have it ready at the terminal for you shortly before your flight lands, which is really nice, really convenient. And literally right next door to the parking was the travel lodge, and again, it was all I needed. It was just a basic hotel room. Check-in process was very easy. You could do it automated at one of the ticket counters. Just put your reservation details in. It spits out your room key, and that's it. It's got a fairly large bar and a restaurant on site. Although I would say that because you're at an airport hotel with not a lot going on around there, that those will get fairly crowded around about meal times. But it did very nicely for me. All I needed really. So on the morning of the flight, early start, grabbed my bags, went through a mental checklist for the 100th time, and did the easiest checkout in history of literally dropping my room key into a box. Crossed the road and I got on my first ride of the holiday, which would be the monorail shuttle between the north and the south terminal of Gatwick Airport. Well, very quick, very convenient. I'd done some recon the night before, so I'd gone and had a look around, found out where I was supposed to check in. And got there, the business class check-in was very quick, very painless. Dropped off my bags, got my boarding pass. Probably didn't go through the expedited security line that I got with being business class, but through security, and then I went to the lounge to find out how the other half live. Now, compared to how I've experienced waiting for my plane in the past, of sort of like wandering aimlessly through overpriced duty free shopping, and it's like, yeah, it might not have duty on it, but God, is it overpriced? Paying an arm and a leg for a bottle of Coke, having a fairly expensive meal at a restaurant, and all the other time sitting on a hard seat while everything bustles around you, and guaranteed some child will be having a screaming fit. The business class and first class lounge was a world apart. Polite gentleman behind the desk checks my boarding pass, tells me the code for the Wi-Fi, points me through to a fairly empty lounge at this time of the morning. We've got the last vestiges of COVID. The drinks and whatever are a serve yourself thing. They've got a nice variety of beers, wines, spirits, soft drinks and juices. It's just sort of like in fridges or cooling, just ready to grab whatever you want. But the food service, rather than being buffet style, is still scan a QR code and have the food brought to your chair. Now, this is where solo travel isn't as good, because every time I wanted to get up and get a drink, I had to pick up my incredibly bulky, maximum absolute carry-on size backpack and personal item, and take them with me, after having the "do not leave your luggage unattended" drummed into me every time I've ever been to an airport. So wasn't quite as convenient as it could be. But I got myself a drink and sat down by the window overlooking the gates. I ordered a couple of bacon rolls. Wasn't that impressed. It seemed like they'd been out for a while, but settled down on the really comfortable seating, and occasionally checking for a gate to come up for my flight. Before making my way down to the gate. Now, getting boarded first is really nice. It avoids a lot of the worst side of people who get antsy and like, I must get on the plane, I must get on the plane. And, not realising that the plane doesn't go until everybody there's got on it anyway. So this was refreshing. So, I didn't feel like I was holding anyone up as I got on board. I didn't think I was blocking the aisle. This particular aircraft had the older style of seating rather than the updated version that is being rolled out across the fleet, but nevertheless, for me, that wasn't an issue. Champagne, overhead locker pretty much to myself, plugged in my headphones and checked out the in-flight entertainment, settled on the Greg Davies comedy series The Cleaner, and I did have to laugh, not just because of the comedy, it's because the captain decided to pause all of the videos for an announcement during the scene where Helena Bonham Carter is sitting having a shit. So the flight itself was really good. Lie flat bed was really comfortable, and the in-flight food is much better than the standard aircraft fare. You get real glasses and real cutlery. We managed to land a little bit ahead of schedule, and immigration was fairly painless. No sort of like awkward questions. No, where are you staying? How much money are you bringing with you? So got through that really quickly and got down. My bag seemed to have sustained a little bit of damage in that I couldn't extend the handle on it. But I got out into Orlando Airport. I'd seen so many times on other people's videos. I made my way to where I was set to be picked up. After a little bit of nervous waiting, which seemed a lot longer because I was early, found my driver and the other people that he was booked to pick me up, and he took us on the fairly short drive to my hotel at Pop Century, and that's where I'm going to pick up in the next video, where I talk about everything that happened and on the Disney side of my holiday. So again, thank you very much for watching. I hope that some of the information I was able to give you will help you when you're looking at booking your holidays. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. I try to answer as many questions as I can in the comments. And don't forget to check out my friend Chris. Yes, and thank you very much. And as every YouTuber will tell you, don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell icon and everything like that. You don't have to. It just makes me amazed to see that my subscriber count actually goes up. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.